There was a time for me when I could have answered this question specifically, with details of how a performance and production develops. Over the past 10 or 15 years, my feelings about how to develop a role, my approach to it has changed. I never know now. I try to arrive in the rehearsal room with as few preconceived notions as possible. In this case, I had a few because I knew I wanted to create contrasting personalities between the two brothers. I've got to a place now where I like to trust that something will happen. And you're right, for me this is my third major company in 3 years, group of actors. Anthony Tempest company, they all went. Macbeth Rock Night Company, they all went. And now here I am with a few leftovers from Anthony. And so
let's not ask him, shall we?
No, my Keith, if you're out there, I apologize. And every company has its own dynamic, its own quality. Every director does, and I know something about Greg now from Anthony Cleopatra and from watching other productions of his. But more than anything, I think I go into a rehearsal room now with an absolute trust in William Shakespeare, that he will help us to come up with something. I know that sounds awfully vague, but so far in the last few years, it has worked.
As David said, they're rather good plays. I want to come back to Shakespeare in a minute, but again, let me just ask the same question of you, David. You go into the rehearsal room, first week, new company, people you probably never met or worked with before. What happens?
It varies. It varies depending on the people who are in that room. Obviously, in a very significant degree, it varies on who's leading the company in that room, or how the director wants to take it. Whether whether this director has some kind of overarching concept that he needs to impose on every moment, or whether, like Greg, it's opened up and it's a democratic process of working through the text as a company. I mean, we spent the first 2 weeks on Hamlet not reading our own part. We would read every other part but, and talk about every other part but, so you're enforced to sit there and listen to what everyone else thinks about Hamlet or Claudius, or which is fascinating and very revealing.
Is that helpful or confusing?
At times it was frustrating because you're sitting there thinking, no, that's not what it means. Don't. But actually, listening through some of those other arguments can be very enlightening sometimes. But I mean, certainly with this part, one of the challenges for me was not turning up with too much baggage, because Hamlet has been done before. And some actors you might have heard of have done it quite famously. So you have to try and shrug all that off. And for me, there was a conscious effort of trying to do, I suppose, what Patrick said, to try and come with a blank piece of paper and start on day one and let it affect you as if you're reading it for the first time.
And let's just talk about Greg.